Hello, hello, and welcome to the latest Forza Italian football podcast. I usually at this point say the only Italian football podcast coming to you from inside Italy, but for the first time this season, I can't say that because it will be a lie. I am home for Christmas. Kev is away for Christmas, and Vito is still in Australia. Kev, firstly, hello and welcome back.
Thanks very much, Dov. Well, hello
Oh,
from sunny I did it. I did it. Now Vito's laughing. Sorry, Connor. Hello from sunny California. I'm clearly thinking of Dov.
hello from sunny California and goodbye from
I
rainy,
must be
cloudy.
missing him.
That's ridiculous. Vito, you called me Dove already this season as well, I think.
Yeah, a couple of months ago.
I don't know what I've done to earn that because come on, guys, I'm much nicer than he is. I should
In
say
my
at the
in,
top.
in my defense, I have messages open from him beside me.
Okay. I dread to think what they might be. I should have said at the top. I am Conor Clancy, your usual host. Blah de blah. You guys, it's an absolute pleasure. Kev, why are you away for Christmas? What are you doing?
Well, as I work for a university, we kindly have Christmas shut down, and the last 6 or 7 years we've always gone away for Christmas, and this year we were invited out to friends in California. It's usually Southeast Asia that I'm wandering around at this time of year.
Okay. So you always travel at Christmas. That's quite nice.
Mm.
Oh, I'm quite envious of you. Well, like I guess I did travel this year, but it's more my traveling is taking a break to be home for Christmas. So it's quite a weird one. But maybe next year I'll stay in Italy. Maybe. Right. And Vito, how was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. It was a big one this year, mostly because my sister's getting married in February. So we had our immediate family celebrating with her future in-laws. So there were probably about 30 of us. So big feast and yeah, lots of company.
Ah, nice one. Yeah, I attended a wedding over Christmas too, which I wasn't too happy about having to attend, but it was a nice time, so it's good. Guys, we've got two rounds of Serie A to talk about this week because we didn't do a podcast on the 26th of December because we were all busy enjoying our time. But we won't focus too much on match specifics as a result of that because getting through 20 matches would be a little bit much. So there are some outstanding things to have happened over the last week in Italian football. Some of them not quite as good as we would like to be talking about. Things that aren't quite as sanitary as we would like to be talking about, and things that I'm sure I speak for us all in saying, are sick of thinking about, speaking about, reading about, and listening about. And that is, of course, the issue of racism once again in Serie A came to a head when Kalidou Koulibaly was racially abused while playing for Napoli at the Stadio Giuseppe Meazza against Inter. And Kev, I'll go to you first on this purely because Vito and I have spoken about this more times than we would like to admit on this podcast, and it's just absolute madness that this is still happening.
It is, and over in England, we've also had the banana thrower incident at Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and it's just sad. We're approaching 2019. It's still going on. What I really would have liked to have seen was not necessarily just the Napoli players walk off, but maybe the Inter players join them. They all came out with the supportive comments on their social media after the game. But what you really want from those players on the pitch with Koulibaly is a show of solidarity there and then. Because, dare I say it, I've mentioned in the past that the league's over. So and probably even the Champions League places, those top maybe three places, the contest for that is over as well. So them maybe getting dropped 3 or 6 points isn't going to affect them in the long run this season, but it would really make a statement to not only the fans across Italy, but the rest of Europe.
It's more than that too, because can you imagine if the two sets of teams walked off the pitch and they were deducted points? There would be uproar from all over the world that would bring attention to this. And rather than it being, oh, look, there's racism in Italian football again, the focus will be on, oh, look, people are taking a stand against racism in Italian football for once, which would be quite a refreshing view to take on it.
And the focus would be on the Italian authorities deducting points for the two sides doing something that's morally within reason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was quite happy to hear Ancelotti say that the game should have been suspended. If this happens again, we'll all just walk off the pitch. And a lot of the other Serie A coaches came out in support of what Ancelotti said. Vito, do you think this is just a matter of words being quite easy, whereas actions are difficult? And if it comes to it, do you think that any other team, any other coach would encourage their players to walk off the pitch?
I personally have my doubts about that because just with the Italy in particular, they tend to be very, let's say, old-fashioned or stubborn in these circumstances. If does happen again, well, hopefully Ancelotti does keep his word because, as the saying goes, actions speak louder than words. So I think whether it's Ancelotti or if it happens to another team with black players, if the coach decides that they'll take a stand and walk off the field, then hopefully they do it, and good on them if they do, because there has to be some catalyst for change, especially in Italy. It's easy to sort of pick on certain nations or question these people taking a stand. Why is it a put up and shut up situation? But yeah, it's only until someone does something about it, then everyone else will take notice, whether it's throughout the rest of Italy or the rest of the world.
During the match, though, they announced that they were going to postpone the game if they didn't stop. And whoever decided to make that announcement, again, I'm assuming the authorities, not either one of the sides, and they didn't follow through with it. You know, if you're gonna do that, you've got to follow through with it, really, because otherwise they know they're getting away from it, and they will continually make this argument about it being the minority, not the majority. But it is the majority in the sense that if the person next to you is making that noise, that comment, you know, that derogatory, whatever it may be, you sitting there and allowing them to do it makes it the majority. And that's the only way it will be resolved, is if they actually follow through with their threats.
You do kind of get the impression that every club was probably issued with this piece of paper at the start of the season that said, in the event of racial abuse, say that the match will be postponed. Don't worry, we will never actually postpone the match, because that would be mental. It's absolutely maddening, though. But are we? I don't know. We've seen in the past, wasn't it? Kevin Prince Boateng was getting abused in a friendly game for Milan, and he reacted by kicking the ball at the stands, which, to be honest, in that situation, I completely endorse. Do it. And then he walked off the pitch, or threatened to walk off the pitch. And is it possible for a player to do that, Vito, in a Serie A match, or do they just feel almost contractually obliged to not do it?
I think it's a case of them being contractually obliged not to do it. Again, it just seems that in Italy there's this put up and shut up mentality, which is sad to see. And without turning this into a North versus South Italy debate, it seems that these problems happen amongst Northern Italian teams, whether it be in the Lombardia region, Veneto, and sometimes you get it in Bologna, in the Emilia-Romagna region. There's this discrimination, whether it be towards African players or black players, or even just towards Southern Italians. It's a shame that, you know, with Italy, it's such a beautiful country. It's contributed so much to the world in, you know, many things, culture, history, sport, etc. But particularly in the North, they're just sad. The majority are sadly very intolerant of those that are not like them, whether it be people in appearance, mannerisms, and all that. And it's a big contrast to, say, Napoli, where they like to think of themselves as Neapolitans, but if they have foreigners and they play well, they treat them like the adopted sons, whether it be Koulibaly or Dries Mertens. And if we go back to the past, Diego Maradona was Argentinian, but he proved to be such a legend for them, and they see him as an adopted Neapolitan. You don't see that with the Milanese or the Veronese if they do that with outsiders. So for us who don't live in Italy or haven't lived in Italy for a long time, it's probably not as easy to understand, because it's just a different way of thinking, you know, because of the culture and just how they are as people. We're probably used to what we are used to in other parts of the Western world or in English-speaking countries, whereas in Italy, there are those differences that not enough people know about.
It is probably accentuated by the fact that he does play for Napoli, because wherever Napoli go, there are the songs, the anti-Napolitani songs, and you were right to say that the people down there do treat players as Napolitani. Dries Mertens is known as Chiro because they've adopted him, and they all showed up with the signs saying "We're all Kalidou" or "We're all Koulibaly" after the game against Inter when they play Bologna. But Kev, he is right, because it does seem to be quite a north-south thing. And now that I live in Parma, I'm exposed to Italian culture a whole lot more than I ever was just visiting 4 or 5 times a year. And are we being unrealistic to say that this is a problem that is just within Italian football? Because quite clearly, football just reflects what happens in society, and this is a societal problem that is it out of the control of those who are in charge of organizing football matches to control racism?
I think it does go beyond, the football authorities. They're not going to be able to solve the problem. I don't think it's particularly just Italy. With Germany recently, we've seen some issues with the Turkish immigrant populations there. And it rears its ugly head every now and again. But you've got to make a start. And as long as you're doing, I suppose you keep your house in order, and then let maybe the government deal with the wider societal problems. But you need to do something other than just be seen to be doing something. And I think, and that's the same in England. I think, who are probably lauded for the integration and the lack of what we maybe saw 30 years ago regarding the racial discrimination. But even the Kick It Out campaign has an element of a tick box exercise for the clubs to be seen to be doing something.
We've got a comment to say that it's often the same guy, actually. So one thing he says that I want to pick up on is that it's unfair that clubs are so harshly punished for these people. Vito, is the problem not that the clubs aren't being punished at all, so the people see it completely appropriate and okay to continue this type of thing?
In a way it is, but also the types of punishments that are given by the Italian authorities are very lenient compared to what they are given in other European nations. Most of the time, the Italian clubs have been given fines, and they're rather small fines. So the punishments so far have basically been slaps on the wrists. In that case, if you're just getting the slaps on the wrist, you're not going to really learn anything or feel any real consequences. It's easy to say, yeah, but the majority are getting punished for the actions of a minority, but perhaps there is a more thorough way of doing things to really send the message out that this might seem normal to the rest of you, but to the rest of the world, this is not acceptable. It's a different world, different times. We should be more open, more accepting, etc. So whether it be fining the clubs or banning certain fans or even closing off certain parts of stadiums, even closing the whole stadium down. But you certainly, the federation certainly needs to clamp down a lot more on these type of things.
Even to describe it as a slap on the wrist, I think is exaggerating. It's not even that. We see clubs get fined. We see clubs have ends closed. And we saw at Lazio, they had their curva closed, so they went into the other end and we saw what they did there with the Anne Frank pictures and messages about the Roma fans, which were horrendous.
Let's not forget, though, this is not out of keeping with how UEFA deal with racial incidents. There's been several Russian clubs over the last decade that have just received largely a slap on the wrist. I can't remember how many years ago that it was now, but there was Nicholas Bentner got a larger fine for displaying a betting agency on the top of his boxers when he revealed, took his shirt off, than a Russian club got for long-standing racism.
Yeah, it kind of blows your mind, doesn't it? It is hard to work out how those in charge see it fit to give out the punishments or lack of punishments that they do, because it's quite depressing. It doesn't seem like anything's going to change anytime soon. You said that it's nearly 2019 now. It's not as if this is a new issue. This has been something that people have been dealing with for as long as we've been around, really. And it still hasn't been stamped out. Do you think it's possible for sanctions to come into this from beyond Italian football? Is there some sort of body that could come in and stamp their authority on this without it being put into the hands of Lega Serie A or the FIGC, who we've seen to be utterly incompetent at dealing with it?
I can't see it happening, but perhaps that's what it might take to really take a stand. If UEFA or FIFA, if they're really that serious about the say no to racism campaigns, then probably they might have to intervene. I just think it's a very small, there's this very small chance of that happening at this stage.
Have any final thoughts?
No, not really. I'd just echo what Vito just said. I think it would be nice to see an external body come in and be able to actually have some control and maybe enforce some stricter fines and things. But UEFA aren't doing it, so I don't hold out much hope that will happen.
A lovely, optimistic and upbeat way to kick off this week's podcast. Yeah, Happy New Year, guys. Right, let's move on from this, shall we? Because no doubt we will be having the same discussion in 2 more months when there is someone else suffering racial abuse. Because we did also see it at Lazio, where Torino player, was it Mete, got sent off and there were monkey chances he walked off the pitch, which is twice in a week. Excellent stuff. Right, let's start with some more controversy, shall we? Juve, over the Christmas period, guys, they drew 2-2 away to Atalanta. And then they went and beat Sampdoria 2-1 at the Allianz Stadium. And Vito, it wasn't completely transparent, their reasons for winning here, were they?
Yeah, well, it's not easy to be impartial in these situations or to be placid and to just accept things for what they are. It's easy to accuse others of being in this victim mentality and things like that. But when it's your team in this situation, you can really feel that there's a lack of justice in this situation. I fully accept that Samp aren't one of the big teams in Italy. And I accept that we are nowhere near the standard that we were back in the late 80s and early 90s, where we were competing for trophies and winning trophies. We're a long way from that. The glory days are long gone. But when it comes to decision making and giving everyone a fair go, these kind of things are rare in Italy. And unfortunately, on the weekend, Sampdoria were the unfortunate victims. We can talk about how some were probably given the benefit of the doubt with the penalty decision, which Quagliarella converted after Emre Can was adjudged to have handballed the ball in the penalty area. But the penalty that Ronaldo converted after Alex Ferrari had supposedly handballed, I think that was just absolute garbage. You can see why there's this anti-Juve agenda. I can acknowledge that the big teams around the world get the benefit of the doubt, but that was too much of a benefit. I really can't see how anyone could have interpreted that as a handball. And if I was Marco Giampaolo, I would not crucify Alex Ferrari at all. In that situation, Alex Ferrari should feel very unlucky and unfortunate. And it's a shame that these controversies happen. And worst of all, it's unfortunate that they keep happening when it involves Juve, because with the history they have, it just gets multiplied even more and scrutinized even more.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because that penalty that Juventus were given, it's just so obviously not a penalty. I don't even think it's possible to interpret that as a penalty. His hands are by his side and the ball comes at him and it happens to hit his arm. But to give that as a penalty is crazy. He couldn't do any more to avoid that hitting his arm other than remove his arm in the time that the ball was coming towards him, because it was ridiculous. The Emre Can one was probably more 50-50. I personally thought that was a penalty because Chan's arm was up and it was a bit silly. But even the goal, Vito, the last-minute goal that Saponara scored, there was a bit of controversy about whether or not that should have been called as offside, because Saponara was in an offside position, but there was a little bit of confusion as to who the ball actually came off to find Saponara.
Look, from the camera angles I've seen, the ball did come off Alexandro, but from what I've read in other posts and also links to the FIFA interpretation of the law, that goal was unfortunately correctly disallowed because Saponara was coming back from an offside position, although the ball was deflected off Alexandro. That being said, it's still gut-wrenching to see that goal disallowed because it was a fantastic goal by Saponara. The technique, the power on the strike, it was absolutely sublime. And to get a draw in Turin against Juventus, especially after losing rather comprehensively the last 3 times in Turin to Juve, you know, a win, it would have felt like a win for Samp if they got the 2-2 draw. So regardless of the decision, you know, there's a part of me that still would have liked to get a point somehow. And yeah, it's a very hard one to take. So probably until Serie A returns in 3 weeks, maybe by then I'll be over it. But yeah, you just, you know, when you're not supporting Juventus, you got to cling on to any points you get. And Genoa got points off Juventus, so we should do it too.
I knew it was something deeper at play there, Vito. Thank you for exposing it so late on. But Kev, do you think this raises questions with the whole VAR process as it is? Are there flaws there that still need ironing out?
I think Vito needs a drink. Yeah, I've you know, we're yet to embrace VAR in English football yet, and I've obviously seen it for a couple of years in Italy, and the whole process does really sort of get to me a little bit. It's the ref jogging over to the sidelines and then looking at the screen, and then there was something last year. I think it was the Rome derby when I because I'm sad, I put the stopwatch on. I think I counted about 8.5 minutes while the ref went over to the screen and then decided to jog all the way back to the penalty area to then, in a relatively flamboyant way, give the penalty. And it's just I hate to use the phrase, it's sort of killing the game, but there must be a quicker way of doing this, in the way in which the goal line technology signals something on their wrist. The goal has gone over. It's used the Hawkeye technology, and I would like to see, and I know talking off air you disagree, but I would like to see it taken away from the judgment of the actual on-field referee, and VAR be entirely external to the pitch, and they will almost pass their own judgment down.
Well, then the question I have for that is, where do you draw the line? Because surely then there's an argument that referees aren't needed and that can all be just done by some guy sitting in a box beside Heathrow Airport, as those on Sky Sports were so keen to tell us every time we saw VAR used in the Cup last season.
Well, I think to relay the message to the players, you're always going to need somebody on the pitch. And how often are we talking? And to be honest, in Italy, if you look at the World Cup experience, which passed off relatively positively, I think, to everybody, we still seem to be using it far more in Italian football than they did in the World Cup. It seems to be 3 or 4 instances every game. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but it feels like it. It feels almost it may be in every single game of a weekend, there is a VAR, there is the use of VAR, almost that they turn to it too often because they're second guessing their first interpretation of what happened.
We did see that at the start of last season when it first came in. I wish I knew that we were going to talk about this beforehand, because there were very interesting statistics that Serie A produced both midway through last season and at the end that showed that the use of it after about mid-October dramatically decreased. So at first, referees were consulting everything, going there for everything, and then they went the opposite way and were too stubborn and standing by their own decisions and never using it, and then it kind of plateaued out in the middle somewhere. But then they changed the rules again this season, so I think the referees are starting to find their feet with it again. I do think this weekend was particularly out there in terms of how much it was used. That Sampdoria Juve game was mad. We don't usually see games like that, and those incidents where it takes a long time to get a decision correct are the minority, I think. Generally, I'm quite happy with VAR in Italian football. I do think anything that helps us get more decisions right is ultimately a good thing.
I think there's an argument for the refs to be more liberal with letting the play flow while somebody is calling back a goal, because not a lot happens really. And, the rare occasions that somebody will score within 2 minutes of maybe conceding or maybe scoring and getting a second. I think with the time that somebody's celebrating, that you can pull the play back, and not too many people would complain about that, as opposed to the actual wait of maybe 6 or 7 minutes while the referee is conjecturing what's going on.
Okay,
But that does then
I have been sent some statistics from.
Oh, I love a stat.
From the boss, who's always watching. Serie A published a report after 1 year of VAR. The mistakes went from 5.78% to 0.89%. VAR intervened once every 3.39 games. There was one red card for complaints versus 11 for the same reason last year, and actual playing time increased by 43 seconds.
Yeah, amusing in its own way, but you'd hope that VAR can be a lot more beneficial. For me personally, I think at the World Cup they did it well, and I reckon they do it well in the German Bundesliga. But I think in Serie A it's just far too inconsistent because there aren't straight line rules. Sometimes it's down to these interpretations, and every referee has their own interpretation. So I think that's where the added controversy comes from.
But is that not a problem with the laws of the game? Because the laws of the game are, of course, open to interpretation. So it's kind of a never-ending spiral. The referee can watch an incident back, and if there are 3 referees there, you might get 3 different decisions, 3 different opinions on what has happened. But there are obviously these rules in place for VAR, but it just seems like at times the referees go from what they were taught last season to what they were taught this season, and then they end up getting caught up in a circle and not knowing what to do. There's nothing interesting happening in the questions, guys. You need to up your game. Let's move on. Something I want to talk about with Juventus, actually, Kev, is Sami Khedira, because he hasn't been very good. He really hasn't. Emre Can as well, when he's played this season, he hasn't quite been at the level Juve would have wanted him to be at. And Khedira was pretty poor again.
Yeah, I think I made my thoughts known about the fact that I didn't think Emre Can was going to be any major improvement on Khedira. I think maybe Juventus were hoping he would be, and then they'd have the opportunity to cash in on him if he didn't, because they got him from Liverpool for free. The argument is, do they need someone in that role for the majority of the season? And would they be willing to splash the cash on maybe a significant defensive midfielder just to win the Champions League? I think it might rest on how far they go this year with the financial outlay that they made to hope that Ronaldo takes them that final couple of hurdles to the title.
Well, you watch English football more than the rest of us do, and they've been linked with Aaron Ramsey. Andrea Pirlo has come out this week and wholeheartedly endorsed their interest in him. He said that they should do everything they can to sign him. Would he make a difference?
Ramsey's one of those midfielders that runs beyond the striker, if you like. But you'd argue that Juve score enough goals as it is. And to me, it just smacks, again, similar to Emre Can, of a really savvy financial move from Juve.
But the thing, Ramsey's wages are surely going to be astronomical, given that isn't that the reason he can't agree a new contract at Arsenal, because his wages are too high. So it's a strange one to me. But Allegri was questioned after this game about Juventus showing signs of nerves, both against Samp and in Bergamo. And he didn't actually dismiss it. He said that these are things that the players have to learn how to handle. Vito, you would have thought that this is the one thing that they are very good at handling, given they've won the last 7 Scudetti.
In Italy, you would think that they would be able to control their nerves much more. But I still believe it's a reflection of Allegri as a coach and also his tactics. Despite the domestic dominance, they're just doing enough to win games and waiting for opponents to make a move. This mentality, in my mind, is not ideal if they really make a serious push for the Champions League. The more conservative approach won't work these days in Europe, and it's all about being more proactive. And I don't think you will go down that path enough because they're not tested enough in Italy. So hopefully, when it comes to the knockout fixtures in the Champions League, the Atletico one, I reckon, will be a tight fixture. But let's say they win that. Whoever they face in the quarterfinals will probably be a more proactive side than Atletico, and they'll have more confidence on the ball and provide a lot more flair. So I think if they're feeling a bit nervous now, then I'd hate to imagine how nervous they would feel in the Champions League because, without using any profanities, I think they're going to really proverbial in the pants in Europe if they don't calm down and show more belief and confidence, especially when they have the ball at their feet.
Excellent way of avoiding the explicit content tag on iTunes. Thank you for that, Vito. But Aaron Holland comes in and says, any addition that Juve go for will help, especially with the fixtures piling up at the second half of the season. Yeah, but I guess they usually get their transfers right, don't they? But look, let's move on from Juventus. Napoli had a mixed bag this Christmas. Arik Milik scored a big goal. Oh, excuse me. Arik Milik came up big for them again against Bologna, and he's having a great season. He's into double figures now, Vito, and he's really showing his worth and his versatility, surprisingly.
Well, I'm very happy for him because of the injuries that he's had. He hasn't been able to show that full potential. Pardon me. This season, he hasn't had those fitness issues, and Ancelotti, as we've mentioned several times in previous podcasts, has been able to rotate the squad. I really think Milik is probably benefiting from Ancelotti's coaching because he doesn't overuse him or underutilize him. So it's great to see him get those goals. And even though he might not be overly beneficial in Serie A, I think I see benefits in the cup tournaments if they take them seriously enough. Instead of just having Insigne or Mertens, they've got Milik, and when he's chipping in with the goals, and he doesn't have to score the fancy ones like Mertens or Insigne. He can just score the simple ones. He's doing that job, and if he continues, I think Napoli, they're going to be a real threat in the second half of the season.
Yeah, he can score the fancy goals too. We saw his free kick the other week, but although Kev wasn't impressed. And his winner against Atalanta was superb. The technique involved, and then the finish there was absolutely fantastic. We did spend a lot of time early on talking about 2 unfortunate issues, so let's keep going through this. Lazio, guys, Kev, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic is showing up, finally. Is it because the transfer window is about to open?
It could be. I hadn't thought of that, actually. I wasn't sure if it was a little bit of a hangover from the World Cup. For someone so young, a lot of Serbian hopes sort of rested on his shoulders. I saw him getting a lot of disappointed comments on social media about how he didn't really turn up for them in the World Cup, and then maybe he was itching for a move then over the summer. He's clearly a talented young man. That strike of his at the weekend was phenomenal. Had it not been for maybe Quagliarella or Zaniolo, he might have even won goal of the month. But on a wider point, I think if Lazio want to secure that 4th Champions League spot, I think he really needs to start turning up more now at the turn of the year, and hopefully it's not just because the transfer window's opening.
Yeah, I'm looking at our nominations for goal of the month in our private chat, and he didn't even get a nomination. Kev, you didn't even put him forward to it. So,
wow, because I couldn't put him ahead of Zaniolo. So,
Okay, fair enough. You did only nominate one, which is poor. The rest of us are chiming in with a couple.
Mhm.
Yeah, come on, Kev, you're better than that. But Vito, do you think that it is just because the window is opening that Milinkovic-Savic is up to his form? Because we've seen Mourinho get the sack from United, who quite famously pursued Milinkovic-Savic in the summer. Is he seeing Pogba's form now and thinking, I want a bit of that?
Perhaps he is. Pogba has been fantastic since Solskjaer took over at Manchester United. So maybe it's a case of Milinkovic-Savic really wanting to replicate that or show that he can be just as good, if not better. I do believe that also with the recent formation changes, I think that's really benefited Milinkovic-Savic. Going to the 3-4-2-1 formation has helped because you've got Luis Alberto and Joaquin Correa playing behind Ciro Immobile, so there's extra creativity. And I reckon that helps Lazio more when they're going forward. So with Milinkovic-Savic, he can make the late runs and also get into those scoring positions because there isn't just one reference point or one chief creator up forward. So I think tactically there have been some changes which are to the Serbians' benefit.
Across the city now to the moment that Aaron Holland has been waiting for all season. Roma, correct me if I'm wrong, have won 2 games in a row. Wow. They've actually won 2 games in a row, guys. And which takes me on to one of the comments, which has just come in from Jose Lazarte, which is Roma, Atalanta and Sampdoria will fight for the 4th spot. Lazio and Milan won't make it. And Kev, this goes back to a conversation we had before we came on air, which is that it's crazy that we've criticized Milan so much and Lazio have had their criticism from us too, but they are still in 4th and 5th place. But Jose says it'll be Roma, Atalanta and Samp fighting it out for 4th come the end of the season.
I hope so. I really do, because I think I looked at it and I maybe sort of flicked over to the league standings after the round of 18 games, and I just saw that Milan and Lazio were still there fighting away for that 4th spot, but still 20 plus points away from Juve. And the way that Atalanta have certainly in recent weeks and Sampdoria have been performing, for some reason I'd maybe taken my eye off of the league table and expected them to have been the ones above Milan and Lazio. They get a lot of criticism, the duo do, but the others maybe just haven't taken their chance. But you'd like to think they will do, because there's not a lot else to get excited about the top end of the Serie A table.
It's weird because we see all those teams, but they're still all so capable of losing. Like Atalanta went and beat Inter 4-1 a couple of weeks back and then lost away to Empoli, having been 2-0 up. And then...
Well, after Sassuolo and Atalanta's goal fest yesterday, I kind of thought, well, they're the two really entertaining. Well, sorry, Vito, Sampdoria as well, but they're the 2 really entertaining sides in the league. But then you look at the goals for and against Sassuolo, and although they're one of the top 3 or 4 goal scorers in the league, they've conceded almost as many as they've scored, and that's maybe why they're not making that push.
Yeah, well, even Atalanta, they are Serie A's entertainers this year. They've scored more goals than anyone else, which, when you bear in mind that there was a 6-game spell in which they didn't score out in 5 of those matches, that's astonishing. They're averaging nearly 3 goals a game. It's amazing. But they've also conceded 27 goals already, which that's I think it's the worst defense in the top 10. 27 goals to concede in 19 games is quite a lot. So they do need to...
I think 32 scored and 30 conceded, but
the other way around, they've scored 30 and conceded 32, which is crazy that they have so many points. But there we go. Atalanta then, boys. They are Serie A's entertainers this season. And Kev, I saw you piping up on Twitter on the 26th of December saying Parma are a point ahead of Atalanta. Well, not anymore, they're not, Kev. Still looking good for that 4th spot challenge, I'll have you know. And Vito, Duvan Zapata he's doing what Atalanta brought him in to do. For the start of the season he wasn't, but he scored in six games in a row now. And I think I saw an Opta Paolo stat earlier that said he scored 9 goals this month, which is the 2nd best monthly tally in the history of Serie A.
It's incredible what he's doing. He's got 10 goals for the season, but it has been due to that run in the last month or so, and he's been absolutely fantastic. If he can sustain that, I think then Atalanta, they might actually make a really serious push for the Champions League. In the past, the problem with Atalanta was that they would have contributors from all over the field, but whoever they played in that true centre-forward role was not getting enough goals. Now they've got a centre-forward who does what centre-forwards are meant to do, and that's score goals. Don't worry about hold the ball up, knock balls down, chase the ball when it seems unlikely to get it. It's all about putting the ball in the back of the net. And Zapata, he's not just scoring the simple ones too. He's actually showing some mobility, some good technique on the ball, especially the first goal he scored against Juventus. So it's great for Atalanta that he's able to do that. And without going too far off topic, I think, for the next Copa America, Colombia should take a serious look at putting him in the team, even if it means starting him over more experienced strikers.
Absolutely. Uwe has come in and said that Atalanta and Sam can't go all the way. I think he might be forgetting that 2 years ago Atalanta finished 4th with a much inferior squad to the one that they have now. Aaron Holland, Kev, is demanding an apology from you to Robin Olsen. Are you going to give it to him?
Nope.
Good. Stand firm.
He still makes too many little mistakes for me. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right.
He's no Allison. Remember, I'm watching Allison on a weekly basis now.
Don't bring that up. Aaron will cry. He's also said that this year has been so long that at the beginning we didn't know the legends Piontek and Santander. One of those things is true. But my year has been enriched from discovering the thing that is Federico Santander.
You must have enjoyed him scoring and not realising that he'd scored.
What was that?
I don't know what he was doing.
I don't know why there was confusion, because he quite obviously wasn't offside, but he was the most shocked that I've ever seen a human be. And
I can only assume he thought it had hit the side stanchion for the net, and then brushed the net as on its way back out. But his reaction was, it was a Christmas gift.
It was bizarre, wasn't it? It shows he has some faith in his own ability as well, that he heads the ball from 6 yards and thinks that he's missed. What a guy. What a useless man. But sorry, Federico. I don't care if you're Bologna's best player. You're the worst striker I've ever seen in the flesh. Before we move on from Atalanta, guys, Papu Gomez and Josip Ilicic are an absolute joy to watch. And Ilicic scored his 3rd hat-trick of the year. He's now the only player to ever score 3 hat-tricks away from home in a calendar year in Serie A. And he only came on after 63 minutes. Vito, this guy is a magician.
He's one of those players that on his day is fantastic. And against Sassuolo, he certainly was. They were all 3 well-taken goals. The third one, to make it 6-2, I think was probably my favourite, probably because he went for a run and then took the shot from just outside the box. So that was a nice one to see. And the only problem, again, with some of these plays, it's a matter of consistency. And, with a player like Ilicic, he has those mercurial abilities. If he can produce this type of form more often, then, again, he's another player that can really help Atalanta make that push for a Champions League spot, because you can't let Papu Gomez do all the creating. There needs to be other players to take the responsibility of him, and Ilicic is one of those players.
I mean, you say that, but Papu's been doing a pretty good job of it for the last 3 or 4 years there. But you are right, because at times they are just so reliant on Papu. Even when Ilicic plays, the first pass is always to the Argentine. Guys, Chievo haven't lost a game since the beginning of November, and they got their first win of the season at the weekend. They are still bottom with 8 points. Frosinone are 19th with 10. Then it's Bologna with 13. But then in 17th, we have Empoli on 16 points, 8 ahead of Chievo. But am I going mad Because I think Chievo are going to stay up, Kev.
I think you're being a little bit optimistic.
Well, look, do we actually know that they can be relegated? Because every year they seem to survive. Every year they should go down, but they don't. Really,
it's a bit like when somebody gets a 12-point lead at the top of the table. The fact that they've got an 8-point deficit to make up with Empoli at the moment, it was such a poor start. Who's had the points deduction. I think this is going to be the year that they unfortunately drop.
I did get ahead of myself. They did, of course, lose to Sampdoria just last week, or not even last week, but over the Christmas period. But aside from that, the last 8 games they've lost once. They've been putting together a good run of form. But no, I disagree. They're going to stay up. They're going to do it somehow. They're going to do it. They've got Sergio Pellissier. They've got Stefano Sorrentino. And they're gonna pull it out of the bag again, and it's going to be the most remarkable achievement yet. And our boss is going to be more insufferable than he has ever been. He's already popping up in the comments. Look at him. I saw his name in the comments. Assumed he was having a pop about Chievo being amazing, but he's just having a dig at Santander, which I fully get behind.
What's his name again?
Let's not do that. He says Santander is so rubbish that even he can't believe that he has scored when he has. It's true. Everyone was stunned. But guys, I think we might be finished. Oh, Kev, one man I am going to make you eat your words about is Super Donnarumma. He's back.
Well, I think I don't know about eat my words. I think my issue with him at the start of the season was very much that. It was the performances at the start of the season and the fact that Milan had. I haven't watched Milan a lot over recent weeks, I must admit, but certainly the little errors out of his game have seemed to have gone. And I'm not sure if it's a move away from at the start of the season when Gattuso clearly had them playing out from the back. And my argument was that Reina did that so well at Napoli that it was maybe time, given his tender years, to give Donnarumma a bit of a break. Obviously, he's not a fan's favourite. Well, maybe he is again now, but certainly after his contract wrangling, he wasn't. And, it's nice to see somebody come through it like that, especially a goalkeeper. And if he's performing well, then I'm happy for him. But it was a sticky time he had at the start of the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, look, we've actually made it through 2018. At least the podcast has. The behind the scenes of the website, we have a lot of work to do over the next 24 hours. But I'm looking at this. Kev, I think you're writing a mid-season review for us. Am I right?
I am.
Good.
Hopefully done tomorrow.
What do you mean, hopefully? That's getting done. Don't be saying that.
Yeah.
And Vito, you've got a couple of things. What are you writing for the end of the year?
I have 2. I've just finished writing about the Italian national team and the year that was 2018. So, yeah, read up about that, although there's a lot of pessimistic stuff. But I've written about them. And I'm doing a feature on the top 10 youngsters in Serie A for 2018. So I've got those 2 coming out.
Excellent. Well, I've got a couple of things. I'm looking at every Serie A team's standout player, which is something that was recommended to us by a listener at Doria Boy on Twitter. So thank you for that. And I'm also writing New Year's resolutions for Serie A's Big 6 sides. We were also looking at the 10 best transfers, the 10 worst transfers, the team of the season so far, and the fun one is the top 20 Serie A players in 2018. And for this, we are all writing a list of our top 30 Serie A players, which is an absolute nightmare to try and come up with. I must have spent about 4 hours sitting down yesterday with a pen and paper, scribbling out names, drawing pictures, writing Papu Gomez 100,000 times. But yeah. All right, guys. That's it. We've made it through 2018. As I said, do not hesitate to head over to ForzaItalianFootball.com between now and Serie A starting up again, because particularly over the next 2 or 3 days, we are going to have a lot of things going up there written by the 3 of us and everyone else who contributes to the site. So you might not be listening to us, but you can certainly read our words instead. So head over to forza.italianfootball.com and do that. We will be back when we'll be doing a mid-season review pod, I'm pretty sure. Well, I say we, the site will, I'm not sure who. And then other than that, we'll be back when Serie A starts back on the 19th and 20th of January. So give your ears a bit of a break from listening to us. And we will look forward to speaking to you again in the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. And all that's left for me to say is ciao for now.